Ryan Gosling arrived at Marseille & Comey, an upscale restaurant in Bel Air, on a crisp evening with the calm assurance of a man who preferred simplicity over pomp. Dressed in a faded denim jacket and dark jeans that bore the marks of well-worn use, he stepped through the gilded doors with quiet confidence, intent on enjoying a meal without the trappings of celebrity attention. The restaurant's polished marble floors, glistening chandeliers, and elegantly dressed patrons created a stark contrast to his casual attire. As he walked in, his unassuming look immediately caught the discerning eyes of the staff, particularly that of Mallory, a waitress whose practiced smile faltered for just a moment as she surveyed his appearance. Mallory's tone, though polite on the surface, carried an edge as she inquired, "Are you waiting for someone?" Her voice hinted at disbelief that a man of such apparent simplicity could choose a place known for luxury and exclusivity. Ryan removed his baseball cap with a courteous nod and replied, "No, I'm here alone. I'd like a table for one, please." Though his response was measured and kind, Mallory's eyes flickered over his worn jacket and jeans, and she hesitated before explaining that the restaurant adhered strictly to reservations. "We're fully booked tonight," she said smoothly, "and we follow a rigorous schedule for our chef's tasting menus." Ryan simply smiled and said he understood, though his inner thoughts marveled at the disconnect between his modest style and the opulence that surrounded him. He chose to take a seat at a small table tucked away near the server's station, a spot that seemed less conspicuous yet offered a view of the elegant dining room. As he perused the menu, detailing each dish with the meticulous care of someone who appreciated both flavor and origin, he could sense the underlying tension. Mallory's occasional dismissive glances and whispered comments to other staff hinted at an unspoken prejudice, and though Ryan's calm demeanor remained unshaken, he found the situation disheartening. Time passed slowly as he sipped his iced water, absorbing the refined atmosphere while quietly enduring the subtle jabs aimed at him. A waiter named Victor finally approached with an apologetic bow, informing him of a delay in service. Ryan acknowledged the gesture with a polite nod, yet his eyes flickered toward Mallory, whose thinly veiled disdain was becoming increasingly apparent. Despite the delay, Ryan found himself intrigued by the restaurant's ambiance, a carefully curated blend of luxury and art, where each detail from the soft strains of classical music to the flickering candlelight spoke of a world designed to impress. Yet, for him, the evening was not about displaying wealth or status, but about enjoying a moment of quiet normalcy. Soon, the atmosphere shifted as a manager named Andre, with a demeanor that exuded both warmth and authority, made his way toward Ryan's table. He greeted Ryan respectfully, his tone suggesting that he was aware of the murmurs and subtle tensions in the room. "Welcome, Mr. Gosling. I trust you are enjoying your meal?" Andre inquired with genuine concern, and Ryan replied in kind, praising the chef's talent while expressing a desire to simply enjoy the experience without any special treatment. Andre's eyes, however, briefly met Mallory's as she scurried by, her posture stiff with discomfort. With a quiet sigh, Andre assured Ryan that every guest would receive the courtesy they deserved and that any misunderstanding would be addressed promptly. For Ryan, the incident was a reminder that true elegance was not measured by designer labels or ostentatious wealth, but by the respect extended to every individual. As he savored his vichyssoise, a delicate, creamy soup that exemplified the restaurant's culinary prowess, he reflected on the irony of a place renowned for its sophistication harboring undercurrents of prejudice. He thought of how the smallest gestures, a sincere smile, a kind word, could diffuse tension and foster an environment of genuine hospitality. While the soft chatter of well-heeled patrons filled the room and laughter danced in the background, Ryan's quiet resolve grew stronger. He resolved that his presence there was not to impress, but to experience an authentic moment, free from the assumptions that too often clouded human interactions. The evening continued with subtle exchanges and measured politeness. Ryan maintained his composure, quietly enjoying his meal while letting the delicate flavors transport him away from the superficial judgments of the night. Yet, beneath the surface, the restaurant's polished facade was beginning to show cracks, a silent lesson in humility and the enduring power of respect. As the candles flickered and the music swelled softly, Ryan Gosling sat back, determined to let his actions speak louder than any preconceived notion, leaving the night with a quiet conviction that every person, regardless of how they appear, deserves to be treated with dignity and kindness. After Ryan settled into his table in that dimly lit corner of Marseille & Co., the tension in the air became almost palpable. The soft murmur of classical music mingled with the clink of fine glassware as he perused the menu, yet his mind kept returning to the subtle hostility he had endured from Mallory. Every now and then, he could feel her eyes on him, heavy with silent judgment, as if his unassuming attire and understated demeanor were a personal affront to the restaurant's cultivated image. Despite it all, Ryan resolved to enjoy his meal and to remain dignified, knowing that true elegance was born of inner strength and quiet grace. Minutes later, as the waiter Victor returned with the vichyssoise, a delicate, chilled soup crowned with a drizzle of cream and a sprinkling of chives, Ryan offered a polite nod of thanks. He took a careful spoonful, letting the cool, velvety liquid wash over his palate, and for a fleeting moment, the world around him receded into a comfortable haze of flavor and soft candlelight. Yet even as he savored the dish, he remained acutely aware of Mallory's fleeting glances and the subtle shifting of her posture. It was as though she were recalibrating her approach, caught off guard by the unexpected composure of her guest. Across the room, manager Andre moved with a quiet authority that contrasted sharply with Mallory's earlier condescension. His measured steps and steady gaze lent an air of reassurance to the space, and when he passed by Ryan's table he offered a courteous nod that spoke of his commitment to ensuring every guest was treated with respect. Andre's presence seemed to ripple through the dining room, softening the harsher edges of the evening. At one point, he lingered near Mallory's station, quietly speaking with her in hushed tones, his expression a blend of concern and firm resolve. Ryan couldn't help but wonder if Andre was trying to smooth over the earlier tension, or if he sensed that something deeper was amiss with the service that night. As the evening unfolded, Ryan's meal progressed at a measured pace. The appetizer gave way to the main course, a perfectly executed duck confit that arrived on an elegant silver platter. The dish was artfully presented, the tender meat glistening with a rich, dark sauce, surrounded by a medley of root vegetables that lent the plate a rustic yet refined charm. Ryan cut into the duck carefully, savoring the aroma that wafted up with each slice. He ate slowly, almost meditatively, his eyes occasionally drifting to the elegant windows through which the city skyline shone like a constellation of promises. Between bites, Ryan found himself reflecting on the evening's earlier moments. He recalled the moment when Mallory's thinly veiled contempt had first become apparent, a moment that had unsettled him more than he cared to admit. He understood, of course, that appearances could be deceiving, and that sometimes people's behavior stemmed from pressures and expectations that were as complicated as they were unjust. And yet, he felt that every individual deserved kindness, regardless of how they presented themselves. He resolved silently that tonight his presence here was not to confront, but to set an example, a quiet insistence that dignity should never be compromised by prejudice. As the service continued, the atmosphere in the dining room began to change subtly. Patrons who had initially whispered in amusement at Mallory's remarks now exchanged looks of sympathy, their eyes conveying a silent apology for the unkind treatment they had witnessed. A well-dressed couple, seated near the entrance, cast a discreet glance toward Mallory, their expressions softening with the realization that true luxury included treating every guest with decency. Even Mallory herself seemed to hesitate in her steps as she moved through the room, her earlier bravado tempered by the presence of the manager, who had ensured that a few mistakes would not tarnish the establishment's reputation. Eventually, as the plates were cleared and the remaining courses arrived, Andre returned to Ryan's table with a quiet, measured tone. "Mr. Gosling, I hope your meal has been to your satisfaction," he said, his eyes reflecting genuine concern. "I'd like to apologize on behalf of our staff for any discomfort you may have experienced this evening. Please know that we value every guest, and I assure you we are taking steps to ensure our service reflects that commitment." Ryan offered a sincere smile, nodding in acceptance. "Thank you, Andre. I appreciate your sincerity. I believe that every encounter is an opportunity for growth, and I hope tonight's experience helps reinforce the importance of respect for everyone." His words, calm yet poignant, resonated not only with Andre but with a few nearby staff members who had witnessed the unfolding events. For the rest of the evening, Ryan continued his meal with a renewed sense of calm. His conversation with Andre had subtly shifted the dynamics, and even Mallory's occasional glances now held hints of regret. As the soft strains of violin music mingled with the clink of cutlery, Ryan finished his duck confit and then moved on to a delicate dessert. A chocolate soufflé so light and airy it seemed to dissolve on his tongue, leaving behind a bittersweet reminder of the night's complex flavors of human interaction. After the check was discreetly processed and Ryan left a generous tip, he gathered his belongings and prepared to exit. As he walked toward the sliding glass doors, he glanced back one last time at the dining room. The atmosphere, once charged with tension and unspoken judgments, now felt transformed. A quiet promise of change reflected in the softened expressions of both patrons and staff alike. Ryan stepped out into the cool night, the city's lights stretching out before him like a tapestry of hope and possibilities. In that moment, Ryan Gosling's unassuming presence had not only allowed him to enjoy a quiet meal, but had also sparked a subtle, meaningful shift in the way people were treated at Marseille & Cossey. It was a reminder that even amidst luxury and grandeur, true elegance lay in the simple act of treating every individual with dignity, no matter how inconspicuous they might seem. And as Ryan walked away, his heart lightened by the knowledge that a small act of patience and compassion could echo far beyond a single evening. He resolved that every encounter, no matter how ordinary, held the potential to change lives for the better. After that transformative evening, the night slowly gave way to a gentle morning that felt like a new beginning for Marseille & Cossey, and for everyone whose life had been touched by the events of the night. In the days that followed, the restaurant buzzed with an undercurrent of change. The once frosty reception that Ryan had endured gradually thawed as the staff and management worked to mend the wounds inflicted by prejudice and arrogance. Andre, the manager, took it upon himself to address the situation with quiet determination. He met privately with each member of his team, including Mallory, urging them to reflect on their behavior and reminding them that every guest deserved to be treated with genuine courtesy regardless of their appearance. The change was not immediate, but subtle shifts in tone and attitude began to emerge. Some of the patrons who had witnessed the earlier confrontation expressed their disappointment with the treatment they had seen, and their murmurs of discontent slowly pressured the staff to do better. Ryan Gosling, having completed his meal with dignified restraint, left the restaurant that night with a lingering sense of both satisfaction and reflection. Though he had come seeking a quiet dinner, he had inadvertently sparked a conversation about respect, humility, and the true nature of luxury. His experience at Marseille & Cossey became a private testament to the idea that every human interaction carries the potential to redefine the values of an entire establishment. Over the following weeks, Ryan kept in touch with Andre and even returned for a second visit, not to hold a grudge, but to ensure that the commitment to change was upheld. He was pleasantly surprised to find that the ambiance had softened considerably. Voices in the dining room were gentler, smiles more genuine, and even Mallory, though still visibly cautious, had adjusted her demeanor to become more respectful and accommodating. Meanwhile, the story of that fateful evening spread quietly among industry insiders and local patrons. Social media buzzed with accounts of how a renowned actor had chosen to be treated like any other customer, and many expressed admiration for the courage that inspired positive change. The experience ignited discussions in upscale circles about the true essence of hospitality, and whether exclusivity should come at the cost of common decency. Some even remarked that the incident had revealed the latent power of humility in the face of ostentation, sparking introspection among those who prided themselves on maintaining impeccable service. For Ryan, the experience was deeply personal. As he reflected on his own journey, from the humble beginnings of a struggling actor to the celebrated figure he had become, he recognized that his willingness to stand up for what was right was as crucial to his identity as any role he had played on screen. His calm, yet steadfast intervention had not only protected his own dignity, but had also shone a light on the often overlooked struggles of those who served behind the scenes. In his quiet moments, Ryan would recall the subtle strength in the eyes of the staff who had since learned that respect was not reserved solely for those who fit a particular image. One evening, after a long day of meetings and thoughtful conversations with staff and patrons alike, Ryan returned to Marseille & Company for a follow-up dinner. The restaurant had transformed in his eyes, its elegant decor now imbued with a spirit of warmth and genuine welcome. The dishes were as exquisite as ever, yet there was an added depth to every interaction. The waiters now moved with an air of attentiveness that went beyond mere routine, and even Mallory, who once had worn a mask of condescension, offered a timid yet sincere smile as she served him. It was as if the night's earlier tension had awakened something within the establishment, a collective recognition that every guest, no matter how unassuming, deserved to be treated with equal care. Seated by a window that overlooked the glittering skyline of Los Angeles, Ryan savored his meal, his thoughts turning to the deeper implications of that night's events. He realized that the true luxury of Marseille & Company was not in its opulent decor or exclusive clientele, but in its potential to become a haven where respect and kindness were the cornerstones of every experience. The lesson was simple yet profound, that a single act of courage could inspire a wave of change, transforming not only an individual's day but the very culture of a community. As the night wore on and Ryan prepared to leave, he paused to reflect on the subtle changes he had witnessed. A softer tone from the staff, a gentler warmth in the smiles exchanged among guests, and an overall atmosphere that felt less rigid and more human. Stepping out into the cool night air, Ryan Gosling carried with him the quiet satisfaction of knowing that even in a world defined by appearances and fleeting judgments, true character could shine through when nurtured by compassion. And as he walked down the illuminated boulevard, his thoughts were already turning to the next opportunity to make a difference, confident in the belief that every encounter held the promise of transformation.